suggesting women expressing themselves as though this were the only way for a woman to express herself.
When you love a man,
Not only way. Nobody said only way. One very important way.
Well, I believe it is one very important way, but there's so much concentration on this this very important way in conversation, even in this program, that you'd think it was the only thing that really mattered.
Look, there's a lovely quotation that applies to you, Norman, and this is when old men of 70 give advice to their sons.
Oh, well,
Don't do it, son. They only say it when they get to 70 or 60.
Women have got past, the menopause too. They get the same way.
What gave rise to this, Norman, was in the past, until quite recent years, women have been treated as sex objects for the benefit of men. We know that in Victorian days, it was considered immoral for women to enjoy it. And it is that kind of attitude that men it's quite well done. It's quite well done.
Just give me one documented place where
You never give me documented places. I'm not going to give you any.
All you want
give
on
me
that.
one.
I'll give you all you want on that regard.
Well, just give it to me now.
Sharing it all with a friend. Personality Radio. AW. We're a part of your life. Personality Radio. If it matters, if it's news right now. Around the world, around the corner. We're a part of your life. Personality 1278 3AW.
Wonderful radio with Norman Ormsby and Claudia. Okay, get your thinking caps on, you 3AW historians. Have you got something there?
Oh, no, nothing that can't wait. No, I'm ready for another theme, and then I'll share something with you.
All right, see a few at home. Remember this theme. I'd be right in thinking it was Victor Sylvester.
Yes, and the program was heard on a Sunday afternoon at 1:30 on 3AW. The sponsor was Guests, Famous Biscuits, and we talked to one of the compers earlier tonight, Tony Charlton.
It would be Stop the Music.
It is indeed. Listen.
Wonderful memories there of Stop the Music.
Yes, and I've told you before, as a schoolboy, I used to send in my name during the week, and they'd phone me at 1:30 on a Sunday afternoon occasionally. And what would happen first, Bruce, is they'd play a vocal record, and they'd ask you to identify who the singer was, and then they'd have a mystery tune.
That's right,
and you'd be playing for a cash jackpot of something like £10 or something.
Imagine how that would work with talkback.
Well, there was no talkback.
No, but now that there is talkback, how would it would be very successful.
Yes, you'd talk to someone like Tony Charlton or Doug Elliott, who would obviously repeat your answer and say, no, that's wrong, and hang up on you.
Yeah, very
Perhaps
fun.
We could revive Stop the Music on Remember When, huh?
It's not a bad idea.
A simple game to play. Speaking of music, super songbird Colleen Hewitt, the star of Return to the Forbidden Planet at the Comedy Theatre, and Nigel Dick, radio commentator and journalist, are special guests at a celebrity luncheon this Tuesday, which is being organised by Vi Greenhalgh for the Salvos at the Walnut Tree. And Vi invited us to tell everybody there'll be a 3-course lunch with wine, there'll be prizes and surprises. It's only $30 to get in, and if you'd like to be there on Tuesday at lunchtime, the number to call for reservations is 328-4409. To listen to Nigel Dick, former boss of Channel 9, and listen to Colleen Hewitt sing some of your favourite songs at the Walnut Tree, lunchtime Tuesday for the Salvos.
person who worked behind the scenes and also up front before the microphone was one Darren James, who worked with me on Breakfast and John Blackman on Breakfast, as well as doing the football broadcasts with Harry Beitzel and Tommy. And he was a very lovable character, was Darren, around the studios here of 3AW. His memories on our 60th birthday.
I've been listening to funny stories of people. One of the funniest stories was to do with the football, and I was back in the studio on this Saturday, and it was Collingwood v Fitzroy at Victoria Park. And in those days, Brian White was the chairman or president of the Fitzroy Football Club, and he was at the game, and I was back in the studio. And of course, you were meant to broadcast football direct without the 7-second delay, and I'd forgotten to come out of delay at the start of the match, which meant that everybody with radios at the football was hearing Harry and Bill 7 seconds after the action had actually happened. And so it was the whole first quarter was broadcast in delay, and all these supporters at the Collingwood Footy Club, which can be fairly volatile at times, were screaming out, "Keep up with the play, bots, or you're just hopeless." And so we're hearing it 7 seconds later, and I got a call from the Wombat, who we used to call him, and he said, "Darren, are we in delay?" And I hit the button and said, "Not anymore, Brian," and I thought my job was on the line then.
I'm wondering, if Kamal happens to be passing.
Well, that it's a great pleasure for me to be part of this. Remember when, because I've been rehearsing for next year's Yes, and I also would like to get the gig for the singing at the grand final on the back of the Bedford flat tread truck. And so you have interrupted my rehearsal, but to be part of a couple of professionals, as I gaze around my office here with the gold record, that, perhaps you two could mention to Roz Oakley that I would be the one to do that job.
Well, it's not up to us. It's up to you, Kamal and Ross Oakley. How's your son going on, that vicious beast that smashed your Mercedes?
Yes, well, it's little Rajan Kamal, who went on to be one of the Bachelors of the Year, and I was not impressed when he smashed the front end of my Mercedes when it going around a light pole, and he banged into it. But, that's just Rajan. What do? I tell him to ride an elephant, but he get in my car instead and smash it up.
Yeah, well, kids are like that, you've got to expect it. I'm just wondering if Tommy happens to be there. It might be an opportune time to have a chat to an old football colleague.
Is that you, Uncle Roy?
Yes, Tommy.
I've been sitting here at home with Fridas, and I've been listening since 6 o'clock tonight, and nobody's called me, and I broadcast 279 games with 3AW and more.
We've got personality, and it's just for you. Radio Melbourne, 3AW, 1278.
And thank you to Darren at 22 minutes to 11 on 3AW. Phil, the fun and good times continue at New Monk's Tavern, Dromana.
Oh, what a wonderful time you can have down there.
You're not wrong, buddy. Club secretaries should phone Harry on Melbourne 589 1396.
Is Dromana a local number these days, is it? I would have thought it was an 059 out-of-town number.
No, this is Melbourne. This is Harry in Melbourne. 589 1396.
Do they have a 008 toll-free number?
No, I don't think so, but that's the number we're pushing, 589 1396.
Do you have a car phone?
No.
Oh, it's a sign that you've arrived, that you're a high achiever if you have a car phone.
How does that?
Be very careful what you're saying. Lord Bell has a car phone. The Earl of Price has a car phone. The Vern of Stone has a car phone.
Yes,
and you're saying, what rot?
Yeah.
How pretentious to have a car phone.
I still say it. Why did they stop at a
Sir
phone
Peter
box?
Nixon in Bendigo.
Oh, well.
Graham Eddy, they all have car phones.
Well,
and you're
that's
saying,
the case.
it's very sissy to have a car phone.
No, I think it's very pretentious to have a car phone. Why don't they stop at a phone box or make their,
But what if somebody's ringing them? What if it's an important business matter? We know an executive of this station, don't we, who drives along with a car phone in his hand.
And it's a toy.
No, it's the real thing, but it's supposed to be a hands-off thing now. And I said to him, I said, listen, you could get booked, you could get fined $130 for this. And he said, not me. I'm as straight as Tonto's arrow.
Now, if you ring Melbourne 589 1396 and arrange for your group to enjoy a day trip to the Mornington Peninsula with lunch and entertainment at the New Monk's Tavern, John and Judy and the entertainers will make you very welcome. And this is a marvellous price. Phil, I'll leave it to you to just tell us what it is.
I've got a variation on I'm as straight as Tonto's arrow.
What is it?
But I'm not allowed to use it. You travel by either CETA or US bus lines. Do you believe, Bruce, for $22 a head, more than 6,000 people have been entertained at the New Monks Tavern?
Now, if you organise 48 people in your group, 2 will travel free of charge. That's not bad, is it? 48 people for a Probus club or a bowling club or that type of thing.
Where would I find 48 friends?
Well, if you were in an organisation, if you belong to
like
Red
in
Cross.
a club or something.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, that happens if you're travelling overseas too, doesn't it? Often, if you organise a large group of people, you travel as tour leader for free.
Exactly. So, what you do is leave the club rooms at 9:30, and you're back in Melbourne by 4 o'clock.
In 1992, the day trips to New Monks Tavern and the Mornington Peninsula continue, and the price, it's a pre-recession price of only, as Bruce told you, $22.
Now, let's just say Harry is the man to call on 589-1396. 589-1396. We do commend this to you, and for $22, lovely lunch, entertainment, glorious bus, fabulous tour.
Well, it's such a nice night out. I believe you took David and his Adelaide fiancée down there to celebrate their engagement.
No, that was de Bortolli's vineyard up at Yarra Glen.
3AW and West Point Ford present Warren Beatty's Bugsy.
You always talk this much before you do it?
I only talk this much before I'm gonna kill someone.
It's been nominated for 10 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Actor.
The way you were staring at me, I thought you were going to ask me for something a little more exciting.
Like what?
Use your imagination.
I'm using it.
For your chance to win a double guest pass to 3AW's exclusive preview of Bugsy at 6:30 p.m. Monday, March 9th, send your name and address to Bugsy, care of 3AW.
You'll end up with nothing. After all this, nothing.
Bugsy, another free movie preview from 1278 3AW.
Back to the archives and to a 1969 breakfast session. Now, this is, 22 years ago now?
Oh, yes.
1969?
Well, 23 years ago, in fact.
That's right. Well, you'll recognise some of the voices from the archives and the voices of 3AW's past on this, our 60th birthday.
Let's pick up the last 10 minutes of the breakfast session at 8:20 on this Monday morning. It's midwinter in Melbourne, although the sun is shining quite clearly and the parks surrounding the city would be covered with frost. The roads into the city would be choked with traffic at 8:20 in the morning, and in the outer suburban areas, those children not being driven to school by their parents would be crowded onto public transport, riding bikes or just walking. Don Rainsford is the breakfast announcer, Max Blake the newsreader.
In Seattle, that's Perry Como. In Melbourne, his RCA single is number 2 on the 3AW Easy Listening chart. 8:22.
Man, you'll look fine in a sports coat by Fletcher Jones. Cleverly colour-matched with famous FJ trousers. In rugged tweeds and worsteds, FJ sports coats are the warm ones. Remarkable value from only $29. At Fletcher Jones, city store only.
With 118 years in the music business, Allen's would like to teach you something. At Allen's School of Music, highly qualified teachers are available to teach most musical instruments.
It's almost 8 o'clock on 3AW. Get yourself to one of these at 12:30 today and ring Ormsby Wilkins, huh?
Once upon a time, there was one red phone. Now, there are thousands and thousands of them.
Maya Suburban Stores, once a season ladies' coat sellout starts today. Stop that. Listen to these great bargains. Top quality imported fashion and model coats from just $30. Classic style coats just $15 and $20. You'll find many more fabulous ladies' coat bargains at Maya Suburban Stores. Chadston, Northland, Eastland, and Southland. Well, I never. 8:23.
Ormsby, over the weekend, Mr. Malcolm Muggeridge, a man whom we all know is world-renowned in many fields, made a statement which I thought was rather an urgent one for Australians concerned, to the effect that Australia was doomed, this being because of the close proximity to quite a number of Asian peoples, 150 million or thereabouts. He didn't state just how long this would take, but have you any comment on this?
Malcolm Muggeridge is a remarkable man. He's an extraordinary wit, He's got a tremendous mind, a terribly quick, incisive mind, and I've always found him enormous. I remember meeting him, a dozen years ago, and he was here before at the Journalists Club, and he was fascinated by the poker machines, although he was never foolish enough to play them. But I've never been able to take Malcolm Muggeridge's pronouncements terribly seriously. He is a man who changes his mind pretty rapidly, and while I repeat I find him enormously entertaining, I wouldn't be a bit concerned that he considers we're doomed by our proximity to Asia. I'm looking forward to seeing and hearing Malcolm Muggeridge while he's here, but I look forward to him as an entertainer more than as a pundit.
25 past 8 o'clock, and you wouldn't want to know Norman Banks is here. Morning, Norman.
Oh, good afternoon.
Top of the morning to you, Norman.
Top of the morning to you too, Don.
Couldn't sleep, Norman.
This is the gathering of the clan now. As a matter of fact, I went to your office, nobody there. I thought, hello, all's was late again.
That's nice. That's lovely.
Car the Blues, 25 past 8 o'clock on Radio Melbourne 3AW.
3AW 1280.
Part of the 60th birthday of 3AW as we celebrate tonight with you, the people of Melbourne, the people that have made 3AW so much part of your lives, 60 great years of broadcasting. Coming up shortly, a salute to Ormsby Wilkins, who you heard just a moment ago on the breakfast air check from 1969.
Will this be the last broadcast Ormsby made when he promised to come back?
Yes.
And he said, I'll be returning after the holidays and I'll have a surprise for you, but sadly he never made it.
It's very sad. Mm-hmm. All right, let's go to calls and we say hello to David. You there, David?
Hi, Bruce and Phil.
Hi, David.
Love your show. It's really lovely.
Thank you.
So I'm wondering if you could help me out at all, Phil. I've got 32 original broadcast radio plays on long play, and they've only ever been played once. I recorded them, and I'm wondering if any of your listeners are interested in buying them. I have to sell them as a lot, and there's 32 of them.
Are they the big 16-inch transcriptions, David?
No, the 12-inch.
And what are...
There's some of them Sherlock Holmes.
What are they? Acetate records, are they?
Be microgroup.
Yes, Sherlock Holmes.
I know somebody who could be very interested who's talking to you right now.
Oh, right, the Canterville Ghost, the African Queen, Inner Sanctum, and all of those.
So are they Australian productions?
Some of them are imported. Right.
I think Bruce might be interested to talk to you off the air, David.
Just hold on, will you, David?
Hold the line then.
Yes, and I'll get right back to you. Just hold on there. Hello to you, Betty.
Hello. I was surprised that nobody mentioned Norman Banks on Voice of the Voyager.
Because that was on 3KZ, Betty.
Oh, really?
Yes, 7:30 on Sunday nights.
Oh.
That's before he moved across to 3AW in 1952.
Oh, that's the reason.
You see, he had a split with 3KZ because they didn't want him to go to the Helsinki Olympics in Finland. And he resigned.
Oh, really?
And that was in 1952, and very shortly after that he came to 3AW.
And I can remember him broadcasting from Manchester Unity the day peace was declared.
We've played that on Remember When in the past.
Yes.
But just recall that those programs, like The Voice of the Voyager, Patterson's Family Quiz, and the Maya Musicale, and Carols by Candlelight, they were all prior to his move to 3AW in 1952.
Oh, I couldn't understand I remember the Voice of the Voyager.
Yes.
To be on Sunday night.
Yeah, but your memory plays tricks with you, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, when you get old, it does.
All right, Betty, lovely of you to call us.
Thanks for the call, Betty. Hello to you, John.
Yes, hello, Bruce. How are you?
Good.
If you can remember me with a croaky voice.
Yes.
About the V-line.
Right.
And you and Phil suggested I ring Mr. Peter Spiker.
Yes.
Yes, well, I did just that, and I got through to his number 2, and he's investigated the whole thing. I haven't had an answer back yet, but he's investigating the whole thing.
Well, good on you, John. We pointed you in the right direction, and we wish you good luck.
Thanks for the call, John. Let's go back to the archives and to Ormsby Wilkins and a tribute to a great broadcaster who passed away, sadly. I don't know the exact year, Phil. I think it was the early 70s.
Yes, I think you're right. I was at the service at Springvale, and I've told you before there was a very small attendance.
Yes, I was there as well. Billy, I remember, and Jeff. Of course. Jeff Mannion was there.
Just a handful of people.
Yes, there was. Only about half a dozen. 10 people there. Anyway, this is a little tribute to Ormsby.
Perhaps mid-70s.
At 5 minutes past 8 o'clock, 3AW News Information Entertainment Radio to the United States of America for Ormsby Wilkins from the Voice of America Studios, Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Jeff. Up the mighty Tigers. I hope Albaraz is not too cunning for you on Saturday. Hello, Australia. I hope I'm going to last the distance this morning. I say this morning out of deference to you here in Washington. It's just 6 minutes after 6 o'clock in the evening of Tuesday, incidentally. In other words, it's last night to you. I rose this morning at 5 a.m. in New York to catch an early plane, and by now I'm ready to go to sleep. But sleep I cannot. I have to address myself to you.
Later in this hectic tour, the strain was beginning to show.
I normally have a husky voice. On top of that, I've got the first heavy cold that I've had for years. And add to that a little bit of jet lag, and I really can't hear what the hell I'm saying or how I'm sounding. But apparently my voice is going out. They haven't cut us off the air.
He was a sick man when he returned to Melbourne, but he picked up his work with impatient energy. The death in October of the editor of the Melbourne Age, Graham Perkin, touched him deeply. For the first time in his broadcasting career, Ormsby used one man's opinion to deliver a personal tribute to a fellow seeker after truth.
When I transferred from Sydney to Melbourne some 6.5 years ago, I wanted to get to know the media there as soon as possible, and I was told, talk to Graham Perkin. I did, and we established that survived. Although he's been a guest in my home and I once took his wife out while he was overseas, we were never really close personal friends. Instead, we would occasionally contact each other and have lunch. It would be a long lunch, usually a 3-hour job, and we would talk of nothing but politics or peripheral matters. Graham was a non-intellectual. This is not an appropriate climate, this country of ours, for intellectual newspaper editors. Graham was a non-intellectual with a healthy respect for intellectuals, if by that we mean the trained and disciplined mind. In his approach to the newspaper, he was no kind of Philistine. Indeed, he demanded excellence in every creative area, from film reviews to his woman's editor.
Within a week of Graham Perkin's death, Ormsby went to hospital for tests that disclosed lung cancer. Ormsby had been a heavy smoker for as long as anyone could remember. He often made wry jokes about his 80 cigarettes a day. He made several attempts to kick the habit, once publicly to his peak breakfast audience, but the addiction was too strong.
Ormsby was furious that his enforced hospitalization silenced him during one of the biggest stories in Australian political history, the dismissal of the Labor government and the ensuing election that he had been predicting for months. The news of his illness brought inquiries and messages from thousands of well-wishers. At Christmas, he broadcast a special one man's opinion to reply to all of them. It was his last broadcast.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, testing. That's pretty dreadful quality, isn't it? But in this room, it sounds as though it might be about the best I can do. I'll try once more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, here comes the message. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry it's been so long since I've been able to talk to you, and what a time to be away. What a dramatic time in our history. Those rumours, by the way, that Mr. Fraser and Mr. Anthony paid me to stay off the air, you can discount them. They're not really true. I was overtaken by a serious illness, as you know, the kind of illness that makes it difficult for me to be certain in my plans for the future. But it's time I told you what those plans are, because my working life is just me and you, and I don't want any secrets between us. So my boss came out to see me and said, "What about it, Ormsby?" Well, I'm convalescing after my operation. I'm staying with friends and slowly getting my strength and general health back into good shape again. I'm also undertaking a course of treatment. My plans are to have a holiday at Christmas time, when I should be well enough to enjoy it, and be back on air, refreshed and reinvigorated with a new program we've already planned round about the end of January. At this moment, I'm not going to even attempt to thank the thousands of you people out there who have written to me in such moving terms, and the many thousands more who have besieged the switchboard here at the station with those kind and anxious inquiries about my health. It's easy to say thank you. I want to do better than that, even though I don't know the names or even addresses of many of you who've just written anonymously. But I think I have thought of a way to do just that, to thank all of you, to reward every one of you who have been so very, very kind. How? Well, that's my secret until I return to full-time work towards the end of January. Good luck, and the best of good holiday seasons to you all.
Was Ormsby Wilkins, and our little tribute to him there.
Yes, it must have taken courage, but you just get the feeling that he knew he wouldn't be coming back.
He sort of had a very, this is the end, a sort of a tired...
He looked so ill towards the end. Yeah. I was working here at the time, and his pallor was ghostly.
Let's go to themes and see if we can identify this one.
Right, front, on the left, quick, march!
I know it's the Bugle Call Rag.
By Harry Roy, themes like old times. Well, the 7:45 time slot on a weeknight was very important in the 1950s. Monday to Thursday, it was Dick Barton's Special Agent, and on Friday night at 7:45, it was Cadbury's Hit Tunes, the 4 top tunes of the day, introduced by the Bugle Call Rag.
We're celebrating 60 years of broadcasting at 3AW, Phil. On this day, 60 years ago, this weekend, the station opened. Not in Latrobe Street, not in Bank Street, but in a little office in the foyer of His Majesty's Theatre. Yes, and one of the few people who were on air doing a program was Louise Humphrey. Hello, Miss Humphrey.
Oh, after Miss Humphrey, for goodness sake.
All right, Louise.
Hello, Louise. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, my loves.
We know you're in your early 90s. That's no secret. But how far back do you go as far as 3AW goes?
To 1933, when I came from Sydney. And I want to put you right on your dates. 1933, we worked in the theatre with the burnt-out auditorium, and there were the biggest space that was available was occupied by the offices.
This was the theatre, His Majesty's?
Yes, His Majesty's. And so you didn't get to meet people. I went there, nobody wanted me. I was a newcomer and they had all this staff. But if I went and got my sponsor and my own salary, I could have an hour's time. So that's exactly what I did. And went to the only businessman I knew in Melbourne, who was Wes Turnbull, the manager of British Dominion's films. Well, to advertise them was a piece of cake because they were turning out all the beautiful films, Hulbert and Cicely Courtnidge and the Tom Walls and all those comedy things and good Celia Johnson and so forth with Noel Coward stuff. And that was very easy. The manager at that time, they seem to have had a lot of turnover of managers.
Yes.
The manager at that time was Stuart Bridgman, and Evelyn Mason Wood was the studio manager. And it was a fairly isolated thing because of the building. However, before very long, when the builders decided they would come and remake the theatre, we went across the road and we had a lovely studio above a car sales place, a car showroom.
Yes, we've got personality. Talk with
On 3AW, you're on Remember When with Bruce Mansfield and Philip Brady. Now, 3AW National Network News.
A top of 20 expected for tomorrow. At the moment, it's 16 degrees in Melbourne at 11 o'clock. In this news, 9 arrests made from a soccer crowd violence in Melbourne and campaigning underway in the by-election of Wills. Good evening, I'm Anthony Hudson. Police have made 9 arrests following ethnic violence at a soccer match at Reservoir. A police helicopter and up to 50 police ground units were called to the Connell Reserve after violent clashes between fans at a National Soccer League match between Heidelberg and Preston. The violence between spectators fled soon after half-time and they fought again after the match. Club officials pleaded with spectators over the public address to stop fighting. Police say the charges are likely to be for resisting arrest. Heidelberg attracts much of its support from northern Greeks, while Preston is followed by the Macedonian community. Campaigning for the Wills by-election kicked off today with a less than successful effort by the Liberal Party. Craig Wilson reports.
Shadow Treasurer Peter Reith, dozens of Liberal Party faithful and the media today converged on homes in Moonee Ponds, which lies on the edge of the Wills electorate. Mr Reith knocked on a number of doors before finding someone home, and when he did, 2 large dogs sprinted towards him, only to run out the front gate. The Shadow Treasurer spoke with at least 6 locals, including one who didn't speak English and another who said he only saw politicians at election time. Mr Reith used the occasion to call on the government to set a date for the election.
The sooner we have the election too, the better. They just want to delay it because they're concerned about the aftermath of the Prime Minister's going. That election ought to be held now, and they shouldn't be just playing around with it and leaving the people of Wills without a member in the lower house. They're entitled to representation like everybody else. We want a member for Wills now, preferably a Liberal one.
Mr Reith also concedes the by-election will be tough, but he's confident of a Liberal win. Craig Wilson in Melbourne.
Meantime, the federal opposition is considering appealing a decision to deny it access to Treasury's analysis of its Fight Back Goods and Service tax package. Mr Reith says his request for the analysis under the Freedom of Information Act has been turned down. He says he'll seek legal advice with a view to appealing against the decision. Mr Reith says the government is holding back on the matter because the analysis is favourable to the package launched by the opposition last November. Paul Keating has allowed Australians a rare peek at his family after little more than 9 weeks as Prime Minister. His wife Anita has told the Nine Network's 60 Minutes program how the first time she saw him he was wearing cream shoes, pale blue trousers and a blue and cream paisley shirt. She says she thought he would look great in Italian clothes. Mr Keating was then a backbencher in the Whitlam government and he met Anita while she was working as a Dutch air hostess while flying in Europe in the early 1970s. Police in Moscow have stopped a march by several thousand demonstrators protesting against Russian President Boris Yeltsin. The BBC's Paul Reynolds reports.
About 3,000 protesters, many carrying communist red flags, but 1 or 2 with old imperial banners, marched down to Tverskaya Street, renamed from Gorky Street, to be met by 3 lines of police. The first line of unarmed militiamen gave way immediately. The second of riot police in helmets put up some resistance, but it was uncoordinated and the crowd surged on. A few policemen hit out with batons and some people were hurt. The police, however, had a line of trucks across the street further down, and it was here that the march was stopped.
Sport, and Victoria has an overall lead of 320 with 1 day remaining in the Sheffield Shield match against South Australia at the Adelaide Oval. The Vics are 4 for 175 in its second innings after they were handed a 145-run first innings lead when South Australia declared at 7 for 316 at tea. In World Cup matches today, openers Desmond Haynes and Brian Lara have led West Indies to a 10-wicket win over Pakistan. The Windies making no wicket for 221 to take the match. Meantime, in New Zealand, Sri Lanka defeated Zimbabwe by 3 wickets. And in Foster's Cup action today, Fitzroy down North Melbourne by 2 points in Hobart. News time is 4 minutes past 11. Melbourne's weather follows the break.
If you want to get fit, badminton is a fast way to do it. It's amazingly quick, requiring keen senses and split-second reactions.
Dr. Blair.
But we don't want you to end up here at the Royal Victorian Eye and Ear Hospital. Most eye accidents can be avoided. So be sure to wear eye protection. Get proper protective glasses for work, home and play. Avoid a lifelong handicap. The Eye and Ear Hospital says, play it safe with eye and ear protection.
3AW and West Point Ford present Warren Beatty's Bugsy.
You always talk this much before you do it?
I only talk this much before I'm gonna kill someone.
It's been nominated for 10 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Actor.
The way you were staring at me, I thought you were going to ask me for something a little more exciting.
Like what?
Use your imagination.
I'm using it.
For your chance to win a double guest pass to 3AW's exclusive preview of Bugsy at 6:30 p.m. Monday, March 9th, send your name and address to Bugsy, care of 3AW.
You'll end up with nothing. After all this, nothing.
Bugsy, another free movie preview from 1278 3AW.
Melbourne's weather partly cloudy with a clearing shower or two. Light to moderate southerly wind, freshening during the afternoon. The extended outlook for Tuesday becoming fine with the maximum in the low 20s. Wednesday and Thursday fine, top in the low 20s. And on the bays, southwest to southerly winds of 15 knots and afternoon sea breezes to 20 knots. Waves to about a metre. After an overnight minimum of 11, we're looking at a top of 20 degrees tomorrow. At the moment it's 16 in Melbourne. I'm Anthony Hudson, 1278 3AW. And you're with Remember When with Bruce Mansfield and Philip Brady.
Recognize that theme? That's from your library, Phil, and it looks as though you've spilt something on that, like some stew.
Probably a cornetto dropped on it at some time or another in the past. The Road to Gundagai by Jack O'Hagan was specially arranged for Dad and Dave. I don't know if you're aware that in the 1920s, when Jack O'Hagan was at Allen's, my mother was his secretary. At the time, he wrote Gundagai. Now, my father was a student over in Perth, but there was no medical faculty at the university there, so he moved to Melbourne. But in his spare time, he played in a dance band in St Kilda on a Saturday night. So my father used to go to Allen's to buy his sheet music for the dance band in his spare time, which was a hobby while he was learning to be a doctor. However, my father met my mother, and if it hadn't been for Allen's, I wouldn't be here today. You'd be doing Remember When on your own.
I think if it hadn't been for your mother and father, Jack O'Hagan wouldn't have been here today. To the archives and the memories on this, our 60th birthday, Norman Banks and Ormsby Wilkins, two great personalities. Here they are in action from the 60s on 3AW.
Now it's time for Norman Banks' Open Line. Norman Banks is, and has been for nearly 3 decades, Melbourne's top radio personality, and is joined each morning for the first few minutes of his program by Ormsby Wilkins, a new member of the 3AW talk team. Ormsby comes from Sydney, where he established a rating lead amongst the talks personalities in that city. He has a long journalistic background. There'll be an air check of Ormsby Wilkins' Powerline program further into this tape.
3AW People to People Radio, where news makes conversation. The time, 24 minutes to 9.
Open Line with Norman Banks.
Top of the morning to you. And to you too, Don.
Morning, Norman.
Thank you. And good morning, Ormsby.
Good morning to you, Norman.
Good weekend?
I spent it in bed trying to get rid of this cold, actually.
I thought you might have been suffering from some sort of anguish as the result of the demonstration. Or you may have been with the procession, the demonstrators on Friday night outside the consulate.
Not me, sir. I keep well away from those affairs. I'm too old in the tooth for that nonsense.
You didn't get wet, then?
I didn't get wet in any sense of the word, no.
Not even when you read and saw that they'd smashed the windows the next day?
Oh, it went... Well, that surprised me. But the demonstration itself went according to program, I think.
Yes, but what's wrong with this element? I'd like to know who was responsible for the smashing of the windows the next day. If that's not juvenile spleen, I don't know what is. Thwarted...
Well, there's nothing new about hooliganism.
Vandalism in its worst, though, isn't it, really?
Yeah, that would be some lunatic fringe group, you know. I wouldn't even blame the Commons for that, because they're too shrewd for that sort of a caper. They realise that only gets people's backs up. You know, that's just a piece of hooliganism.
Yes, well, I hope to catch the hooligans.
Oh, well, they probably won't. It's very easy to pull up in a car and throw a few rocks and disappear into the mist, isn't it?
And so miserably weak and cowardly.
You know, what does it prove?
It proves that they're idiots.
Well, that's about all it proves.
You were talking about Malcolm Muggeridge, and he's with us. What an extraordinary character.
He is an extraordinary character. He's a mercurial sort of a man, and enormously entertaining to be with, I think, or to listen to. As I was just saying a few minutes ago, I've never regarded him as a man to whom I would turn for guidance in the affairs of this world, but I always find him very, very entertaining and very worth listening to. A great interviewer, for instance.
Oh, wonderful interviewer.
Marvellous interviewer.
He gets right down to the very depths of a person's being. I remember his interviews in that television series, and he had many... a great author he interviewed in depth. There was one who was Woodhouse, I think, was one.
Oh, yes.
This was a fantastic interview. But I don't go along the whole line with you. I think he has levelled out and stabilised. I think he's got more clear-cut ideas now than he ever had.
If he hasn't, he never will. He's getting on.
I know that, but still, better late than never. And, of course, I think that earlier in his career, when he was, I think, editor of Punch, that he had this little contretemps with the royal family, and I think this...
Oh, he got a lot of notoriety out of that, but he was pretty good at getting publicity.
Well, this is true, but I think this went a bit further than he anticipated, and it took a while to get out of that maelstrom, which he'd created for himself.
He's got religion now.
Well, I think he's a magnificent character, and this has given him the stability that a lot of people haven't got.
Because a lot of people get religion when they see the grave yawning, you know.
Do you think so?
Late in life.
I don't think so. I don't think this is so. Some do, maybe, but I don't think this is his case. I think that this man's got too much intelligence.
Well, they say there are no atheists in a foxhole, you know.
Yes, but he's not in a foxhole.
No, but he's got... Well, I suppose how old's Malcolm? I don't know.
He'd be in his late 60s, wouldn't he? Or would he have touched the 70 mark?
He's into his 70s.
Yes. Well, I saw his remarkable television series on Palestine, on the Holy Land. And everything he said made sense to me. I know what you were going to say. You're almost in the same age group. That's not so, Ormsby, in the first place. And second, I've had it longer than he's had it. But he understood in depth the philosophy of Christ, and I think this was rather wonderful. And I'm sure he influenced many people who are sort of wondering which way to turn.
Yeah, well, Malcolm, I have to say, Malcolm Muggeridge would never influence me, except to entertain me.
If you read something that he'd written, would he still not entertain you? Not convince you?
Well, he hasn't yet. I don't know what he may do in the future.
Sharing it all with a friend, personality radio. AW, we're a part of your life, personality radio. If it matters, if it's news right now, around the world, around the corner, we're more than headlines, we're Radio Melbourne, 1278. Making you laugh just for fun, personality radio.
Plus your own music, 1278. Up to date with information around the corner, across the nation. We're a part of your life, personality, 1278.
3AW.
To David McGee and his reflections on our 60th birthday.
I promised to wind up the common theme between these stars and these movies. Final try. George Hamilton in Zorro, the Gay Blade, Peter Sellers in The Prisoner of Zenda, Mel Brooks in The History of the World Part 1, Lee Marvin in Cat Ballou, Haley Mills in The Parent Trap, and Boris Karloff in The Black Room.
Did they all play children and then grow up?
No, but close.
Did they all play themselves, but younger?
No.
Haley Mills was, say, 6 by the end of the show.
No. Last try.
Did they dress up as an old person?
No.
Were they parents? Did they give birth to a child on camera?
No.
Haley Mills is really, she's the red herring, isn't she?
Not really, not when you know the answer.
Peter Sellers? Are they all parents? Do they all have a child? Are they all...
Close. More.
They played their own children?
No, more.
And they...
This is for John Hindle's sake, because he wanted to get to bed early.
They went back into their own lives?
No.
Or they went forward?
I'll have to tell you, you're never going to get it. They all played twin parts in the same film. In other words, George Hamilton in Zorro played two brothers. Haley Mills in The Parent Trap, twin sisters. Boris Karloff was the good and evil twin in The Black Room. Thank you.
Thank you. Now back to our 60th birthday. Memories now from David McGee.
When was your first appearance in front of a 3AW mic, David?
1955.
Yes.
Actually from the little news studio down at the Age office in those days, when all the newses were read from the Age. And when I came across from 7HO, that's where I worked from for the first, gracious me, 12 months, I think. And we reported mostly down to the Age office and read the news from down there.
Had Talkback Radio come in at that early stage, David?
No, but it hadn't. But I remember working with Norman when we used the old wire recorder and then later a tape recorder to record people's telephone calls, and then we played them back next day, and Norman answered the questions. And that, of course, was one of the early I'm on Your Side programs. That was the program that I'm on Your Side developed from.
Would I be right in assuming that on one occasion Norman would answer the calls down the phone, but you could never hear them on air?
That's correct.
That's hysterical.
It was one like, as a matter of fact, I've been listening to you both tonight and thoroughly enjoying it. It's only come to me now listening to, for example, Jack Davey and a few of the other boys, and listening to Jeff Mannion, how important personality was in the radio days. Because, there was nothing could be seen, of course, and you had to project a personality or an image of what you were doing. And I was just listening to that snatch and grab bit with Jack Davey, how these days it just, now that we're so used to television, it just wouldn't be any use at all on radio.
I think that's probably the great heritage that this station has still got, that it's been so upfront with personalities over the years that it's got such a cherished position in Melbourne's heart.
There's no doubt about it. Quite a number of those that we remember have been mentioned, Ormsby and Norman and Claudia. But I think back to some of the ones that I looked up to when I came across and before I came to AW. The Mel Waldens and Fred Tupper, for example, who used to do the breakfast session with Mackley's sausages. And they used to have such riotous discussions and behaviour in the breakfast session, cooking Mackley's sausages there for breakfast. It was quite a riot in those days.
Well, David, you must have spent more than 40 years at 3AW.
No, only 31.
It must have felt like 40 at times.
They were all great days. They were really.
You tended to do a little light comedy toward the end. You were a straight announcer for a long time, but then with the Pioneer show with Peter James, it was hysterical radio.
Enjoyed hearing from Peter earlier. They were happy days. There's no doubt about it. We did thoroughly enjoy it, and I think that was the important part about the radio days. We enjoyed what we were doing, and I hope that came across. And you're quite right with Pioneer, and also with the programs that I was privileged to do with Arthur Lister. We had fun, and there was some good comedy, and it was for the most part ad-lib, and lots and lots of people, they let us know, and I think with sincerity that they enjoyed it.
David, a tough question. In 31 years at 3AW, who was your best boss here and why?
The best boss, what do you mean, the manager?
Yes.
Well, that is a tough one, but I think a great deal happened with, and I'm now trying to think of his name. He came across from Launceston. Help me, please.
Richard Gray?
No, not Richard. Prior to Richard.
Ron Fole?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Ron Fole was, I think, part of the development of that happiness in what was occurring at 3AW, and for the years that Ron was there, it was a very, very interesting time in Melbourne Radio.
When I was at 3AW doing breakfast, it was under the auspices and general managership of Brian White, who came down from Sydney and who rewrote the record books as far as ratings and revenue was concerned. At that time, you were behind the scenes doing community affairs and doing a good job there. Give me your impression of Brian White as general manager of 3AW.
Brian was a dynamo. He's a tremendous ideas man, and of course he had such a tremendous team that was working with him and for him, a team which he personally selected, and at that time a team which was very, very loyal to him, and he was very, very involved. Well, of course, I was very closely involved with him too with the bushfire appeal.
Personality radio, we brought it all to you. Only on AW, it's words and music too. Personality, entertaining you. Only on Radio Melbourne, 3AW. Yes, we've got personality news, personality comment, personality sports, personality talk, personality music, personality words with meaning just for you. Only on AW 1278. We've got personality 3AW.
Hello, I'm Bruce Mansfield. I want you to pick up the phone and dial Safety Electrical Services for the installation of your safety switch. They're the only company I can recommend for the installation of your Clipsal safety switch. And if you call them during office hours and tell them you heard this ad, they'll cut the price of installation even further. Don't wait for an electrical accident to happen. Call the best in the business. Safety Electrical Services, 562-1144, 562-1144. SEC 9990.
Lifeline has been providing a telephone counselling service to the Melbourne community for over 20 years. Nearly 100 people ring Lifeline every day for help with family and relationship problems, health, drugs, separation and stress. To continue providing this vital community service, Lifeline needs volunteers to be trained as telephone counsellors in the Arabic, Greek, Italian, Turkish, Vietnamese, as well as English languages. So if you're concerned about people, can undertake training and can commit yourself to regular voluntary work, please ring the Lifeline office now on 662-1677. If you haven't heard Nightline lately, here's some of what you've been missing.
From which Dick Powell movie this song came? I'll string along with you.
Until the day that one comes along, I'll string along with you.
Was it Casablanca?
Was it? No. Oh, no. Nice try. Very cheeky on your part to say that, but nice try. It was Myrna Loy and Dick Powell in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Nightline with Bruce Mansfield and Philip Brady. Monday to Thursday nights from 8 till midnight on 1278 3AW.
On the 60th birthday of 3AW, back to Open Line with Norman Banks when he was at his best, talking to people on air, and of course, professing to know everything about every topic, and he had so much front that he sold himself and the show so well, didn't he?
Yes, and of course, Remember When in this hour is being brought to you by Dick Wicks, who hasn't been around for 60 years, but by golly, in the last few years, Dick has made up for lost time.
Well, a lot of his Chinese methods have been around for 60 years. The balls and the packs, the little pads that he uses, his dot.
Yes. Not to mention the wok.
No.
The Tai Chi.
No, they're not
from China originally.
But they're not Dick's, are they?
Oh, well, I suppose not, but we're talking of things Chinese, and I'm mentioning karate, the wok, and Tai Chi for free.
They've been around for years, but Dick's methods have only just surfaced.
But you know, they've been around in China for centuries.
Oh, of course.
The Chinese have known about magnets since the year dot, since the year magnetic
dot. And that's why we want you to ring this number tonight.
It's my biggest contribution tonight, Trevor.
Oh, don't say that. Have you got your knickers in a knot because you haven't been on much?
No, not at all.
I think you have. You've been sitting in there with that cold curry and that cauliflower.
I've got a touch of indigestion, heartburn tonight,
Well,
so...
do you want a quickies? I've got one here if you want.
I'd rather suck on a lifesaver.
Well, you can have a lifesaver as well.
No, I've been all ears tonight. I've been trying to hear this through the listeners' ears. I've been trying to see how they would be appreciating what you've put into tonight's show.
It's what the station has done over
And I think if Lord Eddie is listening, you might get a special bonus tomorrow.
What a special bonus.
Do you know, I discovered last week in my pay packet that I was being paid less than I had been 2 weeks ago.
Well, that's dreadful.
And so I rang the accounts department. Am I allowed to discuss this publicly?
Well, not
It's
really,
company
no.
business.
If it gets too deep, I'll have to cut you off.
Perhaps I shouldn't, because I've signed an agreement that I won't discuss inter-office.
The silent memo.
Turned out I've been overpaid for the last 2 months. I should have kept my mouth shut.
What about me then?
Oh, what about you? Listen, everything comes back to you. You should say, well, lucky for you.
Yeah, I still say lucky for you, but what if I'm being underpaid?
No, I'd been overpaid. And then they made the adjustment, and then they, of course, took more money out because they've been giving me more than they should have.
Right.
I should have kept my mouth shut.
883-9696. Don't keep your mouth shut if you're in excruciating pain. If you really are riveted with the racking...
a special arrangement with the station?
Pain, no.
A travel allowance, a clothing allowance,
if you
an entertainment
want
allowance?
a back support, a thigh support, balls, pants or bras, all impregnated with magnets, Dick Wicks is the number, 883-9696.
Yes, Dick Wicks. The catalogue number is open 24 hours a day on 883-9696 for the magnificent range of Dick Wicks magnetic products.
Now to the master of talkback in action, Norman Banks.
Open line 3297522. Good morning. Hello.
Good morning, Mr. Banks.
Yes.
Look, I'm wondering if you could give me some advice as to what to do about a lady in our street that persistently brings her dog up and down the street to leave its calling cards. And, I mean, she does it so barefaced that you really could, get out and hit her.
Well, you're striking me on a very sore, tender spot.
Yes, I know.
Because I tell you this frankly...
In California, there's, I think you said, a $500 fine.
That's right. And if they leave their visiting card on anybody's lawn or on the footpath, it's fine $500. And what I can't understand, there are two big Labradors that seem to prowl up and down our street. One's a sort of honey-coloured, the other's as black as the ace of spades. And they both picked on this beautiful poplar tree of mine, which is surrounded, or was surrounded, by a beautiful lawn, which I'd laboriously planted. And now it's being scratched up and the holes dug so deeply. It's really heartbreaking.
Yes, well, on Monday I was cutting the lawn and she came along with the dog on the lead and she stood there with the dog and she looked at me. And then yesterday, the man next door has some beautiful Australian native plants planted, and she brought her dog along and she let it go onto everyone and scratched them. And the lady came out and she stood there and she said she couldn't speak any English, but she went word for word with her. And then she ended up by saying to her, "Where do you come from?" And the lady said, "That's got nothing to do with you." She said, "Well, you must have been bought by a sheep." And I mean, she's so,
Well, I don't know what is the answer. These people who are so indifferent to the welfare of other people's property, I don't know what happens to their mentality when they become so fiercely dedicated to the dog that they lead around. But I'm even more concerned about the people who don't have dogs on a leash.
Yes, well, she says she bought a house for the dog.
She bought a house for
She said, I bought my house so the dog could live in it.
Well, why doesn't she keep the dog in the house?
Well, that's what the lady said to her. And she said to the lady, I've got better to do than be looking through my window at other people.
Yes. That's a very sad commentary on a very sick woman, I would say.
I think so too.
Well, thanks very much. Sorry I can't help you. I wish I could.
Yes, I wish I could too.
Thank you so much.
Right, cheers.
Bye-bye.
Sharing it all with a friend. Personality Radio. AW.
On this, the 60th birthday of 3AW. One of the longest-serving members on staff still here at 3AW is David Mann, who is promotions officer, but started here as an office boy 17 years ago.
You're quite right. He started off in 1973 as a panel operator, and he's still here today and is one of the executives of the place.
And one of the nicest men in radio.
Well, David, you'd be the longest-standing member of the staff now, surely.
Yes, we were talking about the other day, the longest-serving employee, well, full-time anyway, certainly, that out of the 18 years, I think I've missed one day when I had all the wisdom teeth out, but we've seen a lot of people go up and down the corridors. But yes, after, of course, Billy Jacobs' recent retirement and Max Kerwin, who was with 3AW for years and years and years, but certainly full-time employee, that's right. Well, what day is it, Philip, as you say in radio?
You know, I can see David Mann as you're still a young man. You've got a lot to offer, but you've got a wise head on your shoulders. You've never gone to the music side of the business. You've never gone to rock and roll radio, which, is a very successful medium in the city. But you've stayed with personality and talk because I really believe deep down you love it.
I do, Bruce, and I think in life, you have some people who guide you very well, and obviously it starts with your parents, but I've worked with some great people who have said, look, try this, think about it, learn from your experiences, and I've learned a lot from the people I've worked with. And at 17 years of age, walking into a radio station where the format was distinctly aimed at 40 plus, and all the people I were working with were very mature, I had to get out of saying yep and nup, and you come out of high school and you're a bit of a larrikin, and I matured rather quickly. I don't think I missed out on anything, but I had a lot of people who were very good to me, and they gave me one thing that I do appreciate, and that was time. I heard you talking before about Artie Lister, Martha Gardner, Peter James, David McGee, Jeff Mannion, John Worthy, people like that. Ormsby, Norman Claudio, I worked with them. They always had time, and I've got a bad habit in life, and it's asking questions. If I don't understand something, I'll say, explain it to me. And I think I've been very lucky with the people I've worked with.
Sharing it all with a friend, personality radio. AW, we're a part of your life, personality radio. If it matters, if it's news right now, around the world, around the corner, we're more than headlines, we're Radio Melbourne, 1278.
Celebrating our 60th birthday on this special night.
There's not the time tonight, but I thought perhaps next Sunday night on Remember When we might do an honour roll of some of the 3AW personalities who are no longer with us, those who have passed away and those who are gone too soon. However, I will mention that on this 23rd day of February, one of 3AW's communicators died 5 years ago today, and Bruce, he used to do a freelance talkback show on 3AW on a Saturday evening. During the week, he was with the United States Information Service, and you might recall the name Ed Hind.
Oh, yes.
Ed was a very nice bloke who
Where
did
is
a
he
weekend.
now?
I know, I was just mentioning you were distracted doing something else, but this is the day on which he passed away 5 years ago.
I didn't know he'd gone.
And he was a very nice bloke.
He did some great work for me before we did that program in Los Angeles and Hawaii.
He would have. He was with the United States Information Service in South Melbourne.
He wasn't an old man. man?
No, he wasn't, but he was one of some 60 people that I can recall from behind the scenes and on air who've died in the years gone by. And as I say, next week we may pay tribute to them.
Yes, it's not something you'd look forward to, but a nice...
an honour roll.
A nice additive
perhaps
to tonight's programme. Lois Lathleen and Don Taylor, they were together for a while, and here's our tribute to Don and Lois.
Lois Lathleen's Melbourne Today.
Some weeks, in fact, almost some months ago, Don, I read that review copy of Cinderella Dressed in Yellow by Dr. Ian Turner.
So did I, and threw up.
Well, it was a collection of child rhymes, playground rhymes, and I see now that the postal authorities have been more than 3 months trying to decide if this children's play rhymes book is a suitable one to send through the post.
Well, they might.
Well, now they've passed it on to customs officers and to see if they think it's obscene, and the customs men have now been asked to pass it on to the National Literary Review Board, passing the buck. I was rather astounded at some of the expressions in that book, but knowing what a kind of doggerel and play rhymes that kids get up to, I can remember a few not very respectable from my own school days. I thought that in its place, as a rather scholarly observation and description and record of what goes on among the young kids, I thought it was fair enough. I don't know that it's obscene. Here we are again in this question. It's all in the context, really.
Well, Lois Lathleen and Don Taylor with a few of their memories. To the 70s we go again, Phil, and to a recruit from Channel 9. He was an American.
Tommy Hanlon Jr.
You're right.
You would have come over from Perth to replace Happy Hammond.
But Jeff Mannion now.
Channel 9, I guess, around 1956.
That's right, yes. Took his spoons and the whole bit and he went over there. Yes, I took over from Happy, and I remember I was in fear and trepidation on the first night, having come from the west, and over to the big pool of 3AW that first morning on the breakfast program, you know, wondering what everyone was thinking. But Gene Mann was our sales manager then. Do you remember Gene Mann?
I know the name.
Yep. And he put me right, and he said, "You're doing all right, son," and all that sort of bit. So after the first week or so was the worst.
You didn't ever go back to the west after that, did you?
No, I didn't. No. I got stuck. My little routine was 3DB Melbourne, 70X Launceston, 6 p.m. Perth, 6 p.m. PRKY Perth, and then AW for 30 years.
What do your memories hold dear? What are your happiest times here, Jeff, in this building?
I think the happiest times were the earlier times, Brucey, the breakfast program, the first 6, 7 years or so, whatever. We had such good times there. We had good fun. We had a very good PR guy that used to get us up to all sorts of tricks, like doing breakfast programs on the bay. We're even going to do one, only the Air Force wouldn't let me do it, and I was a reserve officer still at the time, to be ejected from a Canberra and broadcasted all the way down. That had never been done before, but they wouldn't be in that. And we're also going to do it in diving gear under the Kakariki wreck. Going to do a breakfast program and do a dive out there. I thought that might be a bit too dangerous too.
You worked with Jack Davey on breakfast, didn't you, Jeff?
I had, yes, we did a few things with Jack, and Mr. Dyer came down a few times too and visited. In fact, he gave me a needle. I had a shop, I can recall, of him. I had a small little operation on the coccyx at Epworth Hospital it was, and Bob came over and this publicity shot of him giving me about a 3-foot-long needle in the nether region.
Of course, there was a time there in the late 50s, and a lot of people will have forgotten, Jeff, that not only were you a star at 3AW, but you had your own quiz show on a Sunday afternoon at Channel 9 called The Price is Right for Paynes Bon Marché.
That's right. You've got a good memory.
I was your announcer, and Ron Davis was your director.
You were too, by Jim.
Oh, yeah. We're talking about 1958 now.
That was the first, actually, sort of big money show, and it was big money for 56. £500 worth of gear was given away on each show. Had to go, you know, on Price is Right.
Yes, we've got
personality,
comedy,
personality,
sport,
personality,
talk,
personality,
music,
personality,
words with meaning. 3AW 1278.
3AW and the SEC would like to give you the chance to visit the top Neighbourhood Watch family in Australia. Flying with Ansett Airlines will send a lucky family to Darwin for a week's holiday with some special surprises lined up for the lucky children. You'll stay at the luxurious Diamond Beach Hotel Casino, and we'll even give you $1,000 spending money so you can go on some of the magnificent sightseeing tours. To enter, simply address an envelope to Neighbourhood Watches Tops, care of 3AW 43 Bank Street, South Melbourne 3205. On the back of the envelope, put your name, address and phone number and the name of the sponsor of the Neighbourhood Watch program. Stay tuned to 1278 3AW for regular Neighbourhood Watch updates, proudly brought to you by the Victoria Police and the SEC.
And now, as aforementioned, the Channel 9 personality, an American, and did some work for 3AW.
Yes, he was an afternoon personality, wasn't he? Tommy Hanlon Jr.
Yes, 4th of July. I come in with dark glasses on today and the coat collar up and all. It's scary.
Oh, isn't it? Happy Independence Day, Tommy.
Yes. Oh, that's, you know, I've been here 10 years now. I hope, you know, no one takes offense at me because I'm an American.
I've noticed you've dropped your accent today.
It's funny, but I wish all these students and all would meet the real American people. You know, who are just like everybody else. They're trying to raise their families and stay out of debt and get the TV set paid off and pay off their home and all. If they met these type of people and all that, I think they'd cut out all these demonstrations and all that kind of carrying on.
I don't think they're the real Australians anyway.
Oh, well.
Those people do that.
I don't know. You feel funny, you know, like, I wonder how many would throw stones at the American Embassy around 1942 and 43.
Oh, yes.
But they wouldn't remember that.
No, of course they don't. This is it, you know.
No.
They're supposed to be educated people, but I'm afraid
well,
they're
you
not.
You saying that truthfully, not just because you're working with me?
I am so truthful about that. No, really, I have no time for anything like that. And it's a thing that, you know, I all get annoyed about and het up about because, you know, there's more to do in life than carry on like that, isn't there?
Tommy Hanlon Jr., one of the stars in the 60s, well, particularly the 70s of 3AW, as we remember.
Yes, still travelling with the Silver Circus around Australia, even today as we speak.
Certainly one of the biggest combinations, comedy-wise, on this station, Mary Hardy and Peter James. Not much of their work around, but the little there is we have for you tonight.
We couldn't let our 60th birthday pass without a tribute to them.
For it is Mary, Mary, plain as any name can be. But with propriety, society will say, Marie. But it was Mary, Mary, long before the fashions came. And there is something there that sounds so square. It's a grand old name.
Hello, and here we are.
And yes, we are. Well, only just.
And it's pretty. How are you? You're not feeling good today?
I've got a bit of a cold and a rotten sore throat, but you know, it's just par for the course.
You can go home at 6 o'clock, love, and lie down.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I was very thick this morning. I rang up here this morning to talk to someone because I had an appointment 10:30. I thought I couldn't get there by 10:30. I just didn't.
I wondered why someone was reading the news, and they said because your throat was so bad.
And I rang up and I said, "It's Peter here. Can I speak to so and so?" And they said, "Peter who?" Which started me a bit. because I thought, hello, I'm gone.
After 27 years, they don't know who he is.
I thought during the night I have been redundant or something.
Right. Well, you know, because we've had it happen. That's what's so terrible. Not so much to you. I mean, you've been in jobs a long time, but I haven't. I've been thrown down a lot of stairs fairly quickly. Or, you know, try not to ring up, actually. But it's harder when you have to face them and come in and they tell you to get out again. That's not too good. So I suppose if you think it's coming, it's better to go away.
That might be a good one. Some of our listeners might have been sacked at some time or other.
Oh, no, they wouldn't want to think about it again, do you think?
They, you know, if it's happened in a funny way.
It's open slather day today because I haven't had a chat to you for a while. We've had a lot of people on. We had to, you know, we couldn't sort of break it up a lot because we had to have the Medibank when we could get them and the insurance man, but they were very, very good. I thought Kevin Arnett was excellent last night, and he rang me in and thanked us for having him, and he said that Joan got a lot of calls about it, so that's good. He's lady, so if you want to hire Kevin, I don't know how you go through. Joan Saxon is her name. If you want him for luncheons or dinners, you know, because he gives all those chats on whatever.
Oh yeah, he's got a lot of different things he talks about. And they're always, you know, mothers' clubs and that are always looking for guest speakers.
That's what I mean. So you know, he does charge girls, but then most people do who talk at those luncheons, and you can ring Joan and find out about it. So he said he thinks they only wanted him. They didn't want Joan by any means. So Joan said anyway. But no, that was good. But I tell you, last night that's really funny. I said to him when he rang in today, I said, I tell you what I did last night. He said, how'd you sleep last night? I said, I had a bad night, but I started a book, and that's fatal, you see, because I try to finish them because it nearly drives me mad not to know what's happened to the characters. I used to cheat a lot in the back. I don't do that as much now because it does ruin the story for you, and this one's a goodie. I can't even think of the name of it, which is terrific, isn't it? But it's by Sidney Sheldon. Remember Sidney Sheldon in the movies? Yes, and he used to always play the tough guy.
Yeah.
He used to talk like that. Is this the same one? It's the same guy, yeah. But now he does package deals, television. He's so rich in Los Angeles. But it's a terrible, because all those early parts, you know. But he wrote the screenplay for Annie Get Your Gun. Couple of Broadway books. You know, he wrote the storyline for the musicals, and quite an incredible character, because all I can remember is spinning the coins and saying, listen, you know, he was so heavy, you know. Yeah. But he only did a few, and of course then he went straight into television early, and then he's into television packaging, and he sells shows, you know, buys thing and sells them to the station. So he's very good. He's written a few books, so not a lot, but this is his latest one, but it's in paperback, and it's about a Greek man who was very rich and used to take people out on his boat. See, living in Hollywood, you get a lot of these books are Hollywood stories. And the girl who wanted to become a star, and the young girl who left a small town and wanted to be somebody, and how all these people get involved, and finally their lives star-cross one another, and it's, you know, you have to take your pick along there. It's pretty easy to pick a few of them, but you know, but he always does that. You see, he puts them close to someone, you go mad. You think, oh, I think that's Frank Sinatra, or I think that's Marilyn Monroe, and he probably is just having a lovely time.
Yeah, just making up
but he dedicated the book to Georgia, who gives me pleasure in many ways.
Ooh, I wonder what he meant by that.
Wow. Oh, that made me want to turn over the page straight away. But he doesn't tell me anything about George.
Or the many ways.
Well, how she pleasures him in many ways. He didn't give a little. He didn't give any more about that. I thought he might have another little page on that.
Oh, he should have.
To help us girls, but no, he didn't tell us what Georgia does or who she is or what. Just that, spelt Georja.
Isn't that?
I want to call the child Georgia now.
Georgia.
Not Georgia. But today it's called Please Ring. I know it's a dull day, but you'll be sitting at home, and we'll have open slather, and if you've got all the days we haven't been able to talk, and we've got what have we got? We've got if you want anything swapped, if you want to tell us any bad stories, if you want to tell us any naughty stories, if you want particularly, well, because he's got a throat, and I'm sitting here with the old red fox, which these fox are found between. The man who sold this to me from the back of a truck said they were found between Bacchus Marsh and All Points North across
The natives of...
up Ballarat. That's it. He kept pointing like that, around about there.
Special
and I said,
foxes.
aren't they small? Because you've got leather in between to fill in the holes. And he said, yes, well, they're not a large fox. I said, do they run wild? He said, oh, I couldn't tell you a lot about them. I don't want to give it away.
They're a rather
because they're our
small fox.
Yes, I think, well, they are. But they're fairly
It'd be
warm.
nice and warm, though.
They're warm enough. I mean, it's better than rabbit, I suppose. And I had a rabbit one for years, so you can't ask for it. Then I got me kangaroo, and it fell off my back. The kangaroo
fell off.
just fell. I roared so much. But I'm still waiting for the double-breasted black diamond full-length mink.
Aren't
That's
they
my
beautiful?
dream.
Oh.
And I'm going to have to
That black mink
save
is
and
superb.
save. Oh, that diamond mink, isn't it divine?
I saw a full-length coat in that just
Oh.
recently, and it was absolutely most beautiful coat
I
I've ever seen in my
know.
life.
I like dark-coloured mink. I don't like light mink. I don't like the cream white ones. Although I must admit, Mother Venuti, Maria Venuti, had one on the other night.
Gee.
Full length, and actually it flared. Not like mine. See how these tight?
Well,
they
I can
don't flare.
understand that. She's got a
The
couple,
belt doesn't.
couple
Just
to
does
flare
up
with.
once. Doesn't go any further. But yes, well, of course, how does it fit over the front if it doesn't flare? And it actually did. I hate it. She sort of wrapped it around herself, and I hadn't this on. And she said, why don't we go and have a little supper at Marty's? And I thought, I'm not sitting next to that fur.
Doesn't do you
I said, if
confidence
you
much,
don't
does
sit
it?
at my table, I can go. But then...
Well, I know a lot of Melbourne folk would love to have heard Mary Hardy and Peter James, and I hope you were very pleasantly satisfied and enjoyed that little snippet.
In the 6 hours, it will be well nigh impossible to feature every 3AW personality and program, but tonight we hope we've brought you at least the icing on the birthday cake.
The final
60th birthday cake.
The final personality we meet is a man who only recently left the station after many years as a great sporting commentator, cricket and football. I think you know of whom I'm referring.
He's still involved, isn't he, for editorials and some freelance work, and you'd be talking about Bill Jacobs. Oh, Bill, nobody would have been associated with the station longer than yourself, surely.
Well, I started with the station in 1958 at the behest of the late Arthur Lucky Lister, who was not only instrumental in me starting there, but eventually became a very good friend of mine. And Artie asked a friend of mine if he knew anybody that had recently retired from cricket. It so happened that I had at that particular time in 1958. And Artie had a program which he called Stars of the Past.
I think more
And he
impact
had
would be go
jockeys
to
and
straight
footballers
to buddies
and
at the end of this, not
weightlifters and goodness knows what, and he wanted a cricketer. So in I went and recorded this piece with Artie, and then did 2 or 3 interviews for him. And at that time, Mike Williamson was leaving AW to go to Channel 7, and Artie had to take over the Spotlight program. And he asked Bobby Quinn if he had a couple of quid a week to spare for me to go on to Spotlight with him, and Bobby said no. But I went on the program with Artie and stayed there for quite some time. And I saw Artie's sister today. I generally go and see her, or sisters, at Christmas time. And I also saw Frank O'Brien, who was in there in 58 in those days when I sort of cut my teeth in radio, as it were.
What were your best days that you could pick at the old address and say, I enjoyed those days the most, Bill?
Well, it would be pretty difficult. I'd have to say that my days with Artie would probably take precedence because we got on like house on fire, as it were. The 17 years or 18 years I spent broadcasting with Harry Beitzel, we had our highs and lows, there's no question about that. But towards the end of our careers together as broadcasters of football, we got on pretty well, and it's something that gels in radio, as you two know, and it just happened, and we finished with a great rush, as it were.
We'll be highlighting Harry and yourself out at the ground on a cold, wintry Saturday afternoon a little later on in the show.
Yes, well, we certainly spent some pretty cold and wintry days, there's no doubt about that. The commentary boxes were always a pet aversion of mine, or some of them, and I kept on complaining and pointing up to the fact that they should be better than what they were at the time, and eventually, as time went by, we got some better commentary positions. I suppose with Harry and I, you've got to be lucky to go through a career in radio without having something wrong with your voice, as you two would know. And from time to time, my voice would go and Harry's would go, and each of us respectively call games on our own, which was quite something.
Bill, did the elements ever get the better of you where you have to call off a match, you know, because of lightning or floods or whatever?
No, it's funny you should say that, Philip. We got close to it in a game at Fitzroy at the Junction Oval in 1971. It was the year before Harry came across to 3AW from 3KZ, and that was the game between Carlton and Fitzroy. It became known as the game in the fog, and at half-time, a fog descended upon the ground, and by the time it got into the last quarter, you just couldn't see players. You could hear players booting the ball. The timekeepers didn't know where it was. Most of the game in that quarter was played at the junction end, the Fitzroy Street end of the ground, and if a score was registered down there, the boundary umpire had to run from that end up to the other end to indicate to the goal umpire what had been scored. And one of our present around the grounds commentators, Johnny Murphy, told me the great story about a fullback kicking the ball out from the junction end of the ground, and they heard a thud on the ground, and somebody said, "Where is it?" And Big Peter Jones of Carlton said, "There it is," and Johnny Murphy picked it up and kicked a goal.
That's a lovely story.
Only on AW 1278, we've got personality. 3AW 1278.
Well, my thanks to Bill Jacobs and John Blackman and Darren James and all the people. Peter James, Mary Hardy, Norman Banks, the great names and voices we've brought from the past for the last 6 hours. I hope you've enjoyed it.
And happy birthday, 3AW. And although I won't be around, here's to the next 60 years. Here's a man who, well, could be here 60 years from now. Anke, you're ageless.
You know, I started here as an office boy, then a cleaner, and I worked my way up gradually through the years. And it was only that you mentioning on air that you're going to go to Anke, then play Buddies, and I happened to be listening in the Prefect going up South Bank.
Well, that's the reason I mentioned that. I wanted to alert you as to what was happening in the final 5 minutes of the program, and hoping you would get here in time.
I heard you on air, and I found that to be the most novel way of broadcasting. I've used a telephone or a telex or telegram, but you come on air and do it. I find that so novel, and you know, nay, I find it refreshing.
I understand you did the same thing yourself, Anke, during the Maya Music Hall many years ago.
I pioneered Talkback, I pioneered Voice of the Voyager, but I wished I'd have pioneered my private messages on air. I think it's most novel.
I don't have secrets from our listeners. I like to share everything with them, even the running sheet.
Well, you're the most unique performer I've ever heard, so listen in for this show for Phil's other side coming on air.
If you did live to be another 60 years of age, Anke, it would take us into the year 2052. Do you think you're likely to make it?
Of course I will. You're saying, oh, well, if I live to be another 60 years, I won't be here.
Well, how old are you now?
Well, I'm 75, but I'm saying if you could live another 60 years.
It's not unusual for the Yetis of Siberia to live to be 200 or more.
Of course, they live on apricot nuts and wombat leaves. It's a totally different way of life. There's no TV or radio. They're not sitting up by a candle watching neighbours. They're out doing harvesting of grains.
But Anke, if we are still around in the year 2052 AD, will we still be buddies?
What say, let's be buddies. What say, why let's be friends. What say, oh let's be buddies. Let's play till the curtain descends. Today, who can doubt it? We all need a pal, that's true. What say? What say? Why, let's be friends. What say? Let's be buddies. Let's play till the curtain descends. Today, who can doubt it? We all need a pal, that's true. What say? How's about it? Let me be a buddy to you. The 60th candle on our cake is burning a little low, and the icing is dripping down the sides, and I think it's about time I blew it out.
Yes, lickety split. I'd say you should, and congratulations on all the archive material you put together for tonight's special.
A lot of work, but I hope it was worth it, and thanks for your help tonight.
Thanks to our special live guests, to John Hindle, to Margaret Fletcher, and also to Neil Mitchell for joining us on Remember When.
And as we put the cake out of its misery and say goodbye, we do so in saying Auld Lang Syne to this radio station as it comes up to midnight on the start of a new week with Keith McGowan, the start of a new year, and the start of many more.
Happy New Year, buddy.
No, this is because it's an anniversary, or are we playing this out of kilter?
Oh, well, happy birthday.
Can you play this on a birthday?
Merry Christmas.
Ta-da, and all the best. Thank you, Mother, for the rabbits.
Happy Easter.
Next on 3AW, Melbourne Overnight with Keith McGowan. Now 3AW National Network News.
On our way to 20, at the moment it's 15 degrees in Melbourne at midnight.